Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Conway. So we have done slope from a graph, and we've talked about rate of change for a table, so now it's time to put those two things together and find slope from a table, which is actually exactly the same thing as finding rate of change from a table. It's just that now we're saying it's linear, so you don't have to do it for every single point. We already know it's linear. We're just finding the slope. Because if I tell you to find the slope, you can assume it's linear, because you can't really talk about slope of a whole function when you're talking about any other function. You can only talk about rate of change. And then just a reminder that when we find slope, we use m to represent slope. I know that's kind of silly, but that is what we use. So let's go ahead now. Slope from a table, that's going to be the same thing as our rate of change. So to find slope from a table, we're going to do the same thing we did to find rate of change. So if you remember how to find rate of change from a table, that's where we go in and we draw the little caret thingies and we subtract. So to find the rate of change from this table, or the slope as what we're actually finding, we're going to subtract 2 minus negative 2, which is going to be positive 4, and negative 1 minus 3, which is going to be negative 4. Down 4 here from 3 to negative 1. So then, since we know this is linear, we don't have to do all of them. We just do one set. And it doesn't matter which two you pick. You could pick the bottom two or the top two. Either way, we're going to get the same number because it's linear. So just pick 2, subtract, and then remember we divide y's divided by x. So it's going to be negative 4 divided by 4, which is negative 1. So our slope is negative 1. So that's how we find slope from a table. Now, let's practice again, and I want you guys to do this one with me. So really quickly, just try to do this one, see what answer you get. So hit pause, do the problem, ready, go. Okay, now that you've done the problem, we're going to go over it. So subtract 2 minus negative 1 is going to be 3, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. And remember, we're doing y divide x. Change in y divided by change in x. That little triangle means change. Equals 0 over 3, which is 0. So our slope is 0. So if we were to graph this, that means it would make a horizontal line because the slope is 0. And it would go through 3 on the y-axis. So there's two examples of finding slope from a table when the table is vertical, which is what we've pretty much dealt with so far. Now, what if the table is not vertical, but it's horizontal? We're going to do the same thing, but let me show you how that works, because I know it can be confusing if it looks different. So we're still going to start by subtracting. Negative 2 minus negative 4 is going to be positive 2. Again, just kind of think this number is getting bigger. We're going from negative 4 to negative 2. That means we're getting bigger. So it's a positive 2. Here, 1 minus 0 is 1. So we're still doing y divided by x. So this is the part that might feel confusing because you have to do y's divided by x, change in y divided by change in x. That's what slope equals. So we're going to do 2 divide 1. So we have to put the bottom on the top and the top on the bottom, which is 2. So our slope is 2. And it might have been easier to use these end two, right? Because 4 minus 3 is 1, and 4 minus 2 is 2. And now those would just be a little easier because they're not negative numbers. If it's a table, it doesn't matter which two you use as long as they're like lined up with each other. So let's do that for this one down here. I don't want to deal with negative numbers, so I'm going to use the last two instead. 6 minus 4 is 2. 3 minus 3 is 0. So I have, remember, 2 goes on the top, divided by 0 on the bottom. Oh, wait, you can't do that math. So this is undefined. So when you graph this one, that would be your vertical line. Remember, when you have a straight up and down line, the slope is undefined. So if you're doing this on Delta Math, you would literally have a button to push, which would say All right, so that's how we find slope from a table. So I'm going to end this video. I want you to do the Delta Math practice and find slope from a table a couple times. When you're done with that, you can watch the video on how to find slope from 2 points.